Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Donaram podcast. I had to stop myself. I've been recording monologues. I am Beau.
And I am Don.
And
a duologue.
A dual. Ooh, I like that. We're going to talk a little bit more about Deadly Premonition, but last time we talked about something insignificant about Deadly Premonition, the plot.
The story, yeah.
The story. Today we're going to talk about the real meat and drink of this game.
Yeah, the game. That's kind of technically what it is. At the end of the day, I mean, people will disagree, the game, every time
it's avant-garde art, really.
When I try to shoot, I don't feel happy. I don't want to live in this world when
combat
I'm shooting.
Is so terrible in this game.
Like if I didn't have York talking to his imaginary friend, complimenting the player on being able to make trick shots on the ghost.
Nice. Fantastic.
Fantastic. Amazing. Finding a jar of pickles in the woods. Pickles! Steamed hams.
Because, of course, this game takes place in Utica.
Yeah.
Utica's where Superintendent Chalmers was from.
Yeah.
It's an Albany expression.
I've never heard of it. Aurora Borealis. But, yeah, like this game, when you play it, it's you're in a different world. Like
you're almost in a fugue state.
You're in the main character's head. You're not in a way like, man, I really feel this guy. I don't feel this guy at all. I'm just along for the ride.
It's
like you just like it's like you're bored. You're hanging out at the high school parking lot. It's Saturday and no one's doing anything. There's no parties. Mm-hmm. And then, your friend, that one friend who you're not really best friends with him, but he's in the network.
Mm-hmm.
You know him well enough. He pulls up in his car, his beat-up car. You smell weed, but he's not smoking it right now. It just always smells that way. He rolls down the window and says, "Get in." That's Deadly Premonition. Get in.
Get in. Just get in, man.
Don't ask questions.
Because they won't be answered.
No, there will be a thin haze of purple smoke, but whatever. I mean, just roll
purple
with it.
haze, if
purple
you will.
Haze. Purple haze.
We weren't able, because we stuck with our normal thing of covering narratives, we weren't able to talk about the real charm of this game. And we were laughing about it, but there is a real charm to this game. There's a real can't put it down feel to this horrible, wretched video game.
Because there's a lot of one of the places that really gets people hung up is trying to find Quint, who is an instant. At first he's a suspect, but he's obviously he's an obvious suspect because he's connected to a victim, an eventual victim.
Yes,
and you need to talk to him, and he won't talk to you. He's obviously up to something shady, but he's never available. He's always around, never available.
Right.
When you talk to him, sorry, it's not time yet.
Right.
It's like if some UPS guy shows up at your house with a package and he needs a signature. You're standing at the door and you just say, "I'm not available right now. Come back at 6 p.m." And then you just stand there glazed over. And occasionally you start you pick up a plate and start throwing it around. But while you're staking out this guy's house, because there's no better way to do it other than looking it up like a coward, you just follow this guy's every word because every character in the game is marked on the map. You will find at any hour, you can just pull up the map, and you know exactly where everyone in town is, what they're doing. This guy's at the grocery store now. That's weird. He doesn't work there. Maybe he's buying groceries. The game just programmed in that he buys groceries at this time. He has a schedule. Oh, where's George Woodman? Where's Sheriff George? Oh, he's out in the field. That's weird. It's raining. Nobody goes out in the rain. And, he's staring at a red tree. This game's so wacky. There's no way that's subtle foreshadowing that you could easily miss. But yeah, it's like you're just following. You learn so much about the town and its inhabitants. It's hard not to get drawn into it. And this is part of why I really love games that are bad, because you get invested in it and you get good, and you're like, realize, I have a very rare skill set. This is going on the resume. I can actually do Deadly Premonition relatively well.
Right, and it's one of the first video games I can think of that became a cult classic video game for the same reason cult classic movies become those, because they're bad.
They're inaccessible.
People enjoy that they're bad.
Yeah, you figure it out. It's a mystery.
Evil Dead's wretched.
Yeah.
It's wretched. It's horribly made. It's horribly directed. It's horribly acted.
Mm-hmm.
People love it. People love it.
I'm trying to figure out how I can unlip sync myself with work shit. like you look off work shit. But yeah,
like every movie Peter Jackson made before Lord of the Rings. Every single one of them.
It's just it's not even just the glitches, and I love the glitches. I love watching people like there was one part in a Let's Play I watched where this guy hated Quint. He hated him so much, so he went to the junkyard and bought Quint's car from him, out from under him. So he stole Quint's car and his wrench, and his girlfriend's dead. So he's actually feeling really good about the game because he's accomplishing his primary goal of ruining Quint. And then he sees Quint roll into the grocery store. He's walking because he doesn't have a car. And of course, right now he's like the player has Quint's car. Quint doesn't know it's not his car anymore. So he steps up to the car, sits parallel to the driver, and then ghost rides it away. Like Quint stole his car back. You won't get that in whatever big games you kids are playing.
You're not going to get that in The Last of Us Part 2.
And I like the setting. I like the small town setting because it's us. You look like, oh yeah, it was a big town once. There was a lot happening.
Yeah, it speaks to you and I as Rust Belt babies. It speaks to us a lot because we know the feeling of growing up and being bored to death in a town while old people comfort you by telling you how good it used to be.
Yeah, like you sit down at at a lunch table, your grandma's 50 yards away telling you about the glory days, and you're like, huh?
And the music, the best part of this is that the music progressively gets louder, and the characters are aware.
Grandpa's on the kazoo, and no one's going to tell him to shut up. He's having a good day. Just let him do his thing.
And man, 2009 for this game?
2010, I think.
2010.
Same as Nier. So.
Nier, another avant-garde game that people just didn't get.
It's on its surface, it's just a nice Zelda kind of clone. It plays fine. Its big standout with its music, and then you realize, oh god, this game has a lot to say. And
interestingly enough, these are two extremely eccentric creators that made these games.
Yeah, Yoko Taro from Nier actively hates gamers, and I love it.
Yeah, he actively hates gamers. He appears everywhere in a moon mask, isn't it?
Yeah, well, not the moon, Emil's head, the skeleton head from Emil.
And he actually, I remember one interview I saw with him is he designed. Of course, he's a Square Enix guy. Mm-hmm. He designed a raid for Final Fantasy XIV. And the whole interview is him bitching about how much they didn't let him do that he wanted to do. They're like, no, you don't understand this is an MMO. It has to follow a certain formula. And he's like, but what if we break it, man? And it's just incredible because he wanted to make a raid that everyone would hate to play. Is what he wanted to do.
Like my favorite part of Nier was there was a mini game where you need to breed a certain kind of flower for this person. And it's just a side quest. It's a side quest. It's a meaningless side quest. A lot of side quests are fun because they give you good dialogue with the party members. But this one takes, if you do it naturally, it will take you in real life months to pull off. Unless you reset the Xbox's timer settings, because the garden that you crossbreed these flowers from grows IRL time.
Really?
And the reward for doing this is minuscule. It is there specifically to make you not want to completionist the game, which you don't have to do.
It's incredible.
And if you do completionist the game, it erases your save file. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Swery's a different Hulk. He's a card.
He's just more of the that asshole that just says what's going to make you mad. But he's never seen Twin Peaks.
Nope.
He swears up and down he hasn't.
And honestly, it's not really the David Lynch that I don't know if there's something about Greenvale that really just made me like hanging around in it as a detached New York East Coast elitist asshole.
And I like that that's where we met York. We didn't meet him during his Dale Cooper phase. That's not until the second game.
Yeah.
But we meet him when he's very haughty. He feels very much above these country bumpkins because he already knows that a small town, the imagery is just... But what's more important was that he was a hardcore punk rocker. high school, and Emily's not taking that very seriously.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
Like the random lunches you can have, when he's talking, like he's having lunch with an office lunch with the sheriff, the deputy, Emily, and he's always telling the most gritty stories of a serial killer who drank from a skull, and then it's just that gets me. I mean, that's unsanitary. Like no one else can finish eating. He blows smoke in people's faces.
Woodman being so heavily involved in the crime and being so opposed, because normally that character in a mystery would be, oh yes, we'll do anything the FBI needs. He'd be super. So the fact that Woodman hates York so much and doesn't hide it, the fact that Woodman doesn't really hide that he's involved with the crime.
Yeah,
he doesn't really do that.
He's passionate about women.
Deer are very erotic creatures.
I like that Emily, she says George tried to put the moves on her and she shot him down and didn't think about it. Apparently, George didn't take the hint, though, because apparently he had a harem, of a very inappropriate schoolgirl harem.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout that the whole reason this sex cult went from sex cult to sex murder cult.
Yeah.
Is because Emily showed up and none of the other girls could compare. Not even Thomas, who really rocked the look.
Was Thomas in it?
Thomas was. He was one of the goddesses.
Oh, okay.
Not sure what. I don't know if he just liked wearing dresses or if there was something else. We didn't really talk to him.
Yeah, right. We didn't really. Get to know
York
that.
didn't ask him his pronouns. He just said, "Hey, you make good biscuits. That is your job to serve the FBI biscuits when I show up. Aren't you supposed to be meeting someone at the museum? I can put that off till tomorrow. Sheriff will understand. I need biscuits."
And that's what's funny is I'm actually personally not a big fan of biscuits. I don't. They are by their if they were biscuits served with something that you put on the biscuits, that's fine. But biscuits on their own, I don't.
They're very dried.
They're by their nature. Yeah. It's not their fault. Yeah. It's just they're meant to be paired with something. So it's kind of incredible that York likes just the biscuits.
He's used to just eating spinach that he finds in the woods.
Conceivably, a can of SpaghettiOs would have been an incredible.
Like most of my meals were I've been staking out Quint's house for 12 hours. There's dogs raining from heaven. And
it's raining dogs.
I need to smoke it out here in this fence where they can't get to me. I better eat some lollipops so I don't starve.
I like getting a paycheck from the FBI for shaving.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Dirty hobo cop, minus $50. You get so stinky and you're unshaven that the FBI starts fining you.
Right.
And I like that he's apparently honest. Like he's calling it, I haven't shaved in 3 weeks. They call me Lord of the Flies.
Because this is 2010. There's iPhones. He could take a picture and send it to him.
Yeah,
he just
check
did.
it. He's York selfies from. He's taking selfies with the murder victims. Here I am in Ghost World. So,
one thing to note about this game is it wasn't until very recently in its lifespan that it became this sort of cult classic.
It just it's acknowledged.
It's acknowledged now, and that's weird. And I think the Steam release back in 2015, I think.
Yeah,
it had a big part to do with that because the Steam release had overwhelmingly good reviews, and the Steam actually, what's interesting about the Steam release was there was a horrible game-breaking bug when you went to do the logging camp quest. You couldn't proceed, and you had to literally patch the game with a third-party patch. They did not release a patch. You had to do you had to patch the game yourself in order to finish it, and it was really dependent on your chipset whether it would work or not. And it's something the creators didn't intend, and it was just such a Deadly Premonition thing that the reviews on Steam went up when this bug was discovered. People were like, "It's great. I can't even finish it. It's fantastic." And my Steam copy is still unfinished.
It's a mystery game, and part of the mystery is figuring out how the game works to make it work. You get through the game. That's an achievement. And I love hanging out in Greenvale and learning all the like weird things because Greenvale is a very weird place. Like even without the weird, nobody goes out at night because of the legend of the Raincoat Killer or the mysterious capitalist or all the other weird stuff. Like the rockabilly guy who is married to an older woman who runs the grocery store. And he's always just spending time telling you ghost stories. Like,
And it's,
hey, FBI.
it's not even on rhythm. It's a very feverish snap like that.
And I love ghost stories. I love ghost stories not because they're scary, like they put off that sense of unease, but
they tell you a lot about the place.
Yeah, they tell you a lot about where you are. Like the kind of ghost stories your town has tell you a lot about it. And I love it's one of the best ways to get like a sense of the local history because one of the town's ghost stories is about the logging camp. About that log trucker, the trucker who's like hauling from the logging site, and his daughter went to college and got all liberal, and she's been protesting, and then he sees a bunch of protesters, and he decides to just run them down, show him who's boss, and he winds up running over his daughter. Now she haunts that tunnel. Unfortunately, she's not in the tunnel. There's just a bunch of random ghosts there,
Right.
and a spirit machine gun.
Ghost stories are kind of, they tell you a lot about, like, for instance, Evansville has the haunting of Willard Library, and that explains why locals in Evansville don't read.
Yes. The Gray Lady will get you.
Is that what she's called?
The Gray Lady, I think.
The Great or Gray?
The Gray.
Gray. Locally in Yankeetown, not a mile from this spot, on Ebley Road, there was a legend of a man who was driving his horse home from drinking all night in Boonville, and he rode his horse home at night and fell off and cracked his head off. And so now at midnight, a ghost with no head will be standing on Ebley Road, hitching a ride.
Oh, that's cool.
So it tells you a lot about this area in that many people rode all the way to Boonville, a 10-mile ride to get drunk and come home. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was the ghost story with the Greenville logging camp.
And like all these places in Greenville have like some kind of ghost story that you can go to. Like, hey FBI, you want to hear a ghost story? You know I do. I actually don't know that many ghost stories from Tell City. Actually,
Tell City, it's kind of a.
I mean, there is the Cannelton. The Cannelton's the old courthouse, which is hollow. Yeah. Don't actually know the stories associated with that. But.
Boonville has Black Annie.
Yeah.
Boonville, and they themed their Halloween around Black Annie. Actually, that's the town Halloween.
That's cool. That's a sign of healthy,
the
healthy community.
She was a witch or something. I can't remember fully that story. It's probably pretty easy to look up, but no. Greenville has a. What's funny is it's seen as broken and terrible right now, but it was kind of a Dreamcast effect. It was too ahead of its time. Greenvale actually is kind of pioneering in the sense that when we have open world games now, a criticism against them is if people don't have a schedule.
Yeah.
And that wasn't super common. It's kind of the natural progression of Shenmue. Shenmue, a game from 11 years before Deadly Premonition that kind of did everything Deadly Premonition did better, despite Deadly Premonition having 11 years and a whole new generation of gaming consoles to make it as perfect as they could. But and man, I just remember there was no fanfare around this game at release. None. You discovered it from a bargain bin. From a bargain bin
and through something awful because some random guy who was not really that big of an LP, or he's just one of those guys who
he just adored this game.
He's in it for the art. You know, like he's in it for the art, not the views. Like he's like us, we're avant-garde artists,
right?
And it's just there's just a lot to experience if you know where to look for it, and he knows everything about the game.
Well, he knows where to look for it.
He took the time. He knows where all the secrets are. He knows where all the weird scheduling things are. What that tells you about the people. He'll be like talking about like you can see she has a much bigger house than everyone else in Greenvale. dumpster, and he makes York jump in the dumpster. There's no gameplay reason for that. Like maybe hide and seek in like Ghost World, but in real world, there's nothing to hide from, really.
And what's interesting about him is I actually watched. It was the first LP I ever watched. I didn't know what an LP was. I watched it based on your suggestion. And what's interesting about it, he starts off making the Twin Peaks comparison and how much he loved Twin Peaks and how this game speaks to him. But that's the last time he mentions it. And he just talks about how a game can speak to you. And it stops speaking to him because Twin Peaks is his favorite show, and starts speaking to him because it's a broken mess of a game that still found a way into people's hearts. It's the little game that could.
Yeah.
It's I think but one thing that's actually amazing about it is how good of a character York actually is. That this isn't a part of the game we like because of how bad it is. He's genuinely a very fascinating character.
Like he's an asshole, but he actually does like the people. Like he grows, like he becomes a lot more tolerable. And especially when his romance with Emily starts to kick off, he actually starts really caring about everything around the town. And it really sets him up nice for the climax where he fails to protect Emily just like his dad failed to protect his mom. And that leads to his finally self-actualizing and letting York go to be Zack again.
And the York and Zack dynamic is a brilliant gameplay dynamic. Like it's... I almost wish it could have been in a better made game, but I realize what we risk losing if that were to happen.
Like the whole time you're just like a player like controlling another character, but at the end, player and character are one. You're on board.
It's very and I think this game even did really well in Japan. I think the Japanese were really into it because it is a Japanese game.
Yeah.
People forget that. It's sort of I really would like. There's a lot of elements from it that I would like to see in a more a better budgeted game. But at the same time, because the scheduling was so good in theory, it really was. Everyone having a schedule,
encouraging you to explore and figure the town out.
It was
without like it's not like Skyrim where there's like quest pointers like here you go here. It's about 500 meters that way.
Right, and that's
you just gotta figure it out.
And another thing about Skyrim is people have a schedule, but it's a very dull schedule.
Yeah.
It's literally walk out of their house, go down and swing a sickle for like 10 game hours, and then go back inside.
Like at least in Oblivion, you can throw an apple and start a riot.
And I much prefer Morrowind, where they just stood there and had funny dialogue. My favorite one is the Nord, the Nord default for Nord NPCs. When you walk up to them, seen any elves lately? And you get a lot of stuff like that in Deadly Premonition. In Deadly Premonition, it was a 360 game, if I'm not mistaken. And 360, I think, far and away won that console war. Like, there was more 360s in the world than there were anything else.
Yeah.
It was the PlayStation 2 of its generation. And that's kind of an interesting facet just right there, because it was on the most popular console. It had everything to make it a successful game. They just didn't make it very well. It sort of fell by the wayside. Now, the side quests, we didn't have a lot of time to talk about side quests. What was your favorite side quest in the game? What's the one that stands out the most to you?
God, there's so many though. It's getting the wrench for Quint is it's not really memorable. It's just memorable because that wrench will carry you through the entire game.
It's the best weapon in the game.
It is, except for the guitar.
That's right, the Rockabilly Guy's guitar.
Yeah. There's helping the victim's mother do something. I think like every character has some kind of side quest. Like there's darts for the bar owner to earn his respect.
Which doesn't get you anything but his respect, if memory serves.
And it's not like
but that's reward enough.
The thing is, it's not side quests. The things I remember most about the game is hanging out too late at night and Hell Dogs showing up because I didn't know I didn't expect them. So I'm like driving around and I hit something. I get out of the car and there's a Hell Dog in front of my car. I get back in my car and start speeding away as the Hell Dog chases me. I need to get back to the hotel.
Do they ever explain these hauntings? Is it because of the red tree?
It's just like the red tree and the gas that the army experimented on from
Because-
the red seeds, seeped into the soil, and every time it rains, the mist rolls up, and everyone starts acting weird.
Because again, Swery never intended for combat to be in this game. It was
No.
shoehorned in. That's why it feels so awkward and
Yeah.
terrible. Because it was never meant to be in the game. That's why it takes place in another world. It doesn't take place in the real world. It takes
Yeah.
place in the spirit world that they were forced to shoehorn in. Because they're like, we can't do because the studio. I don't even know who produced this. I don't even know.
I can't remember. I don't really.
It's not important.
It's not something I really look into.
Yeah, it's not important. But I remember they were just very adamant that this was going to become a survival. It was not going to be a mystery game. It was going to be a survival horror game. It was going to compete with Resident Evil, and it absolutely blew Resident Evil out of the water. Resident Evil had to go in a completely different direction just to catch up to Deadly Premonition. And what's funny is seeing Deadly Premonition's influence on games now. It's sort of like beg your pardon. It's sort of like those bands back then that were terrible, but now people like them ironically. And but I think it's important to note that we don't enjoy Deadly Premonition ironically.
No,
we
I
genuinely like this game. It's not.
genuinely loved hanging around, driving around Greenvale, getting lost, trying to figure out what makes it tick. Like there's like that seedy. I love. I have a fondness for Stephen King beyond what he deserves, but and a lot of that comes
The best way I've ever heard that put.
and a lot of that just comes from a town with secrets, like good people, but it's haunted by something, not necessarily by ghosts, not necessarily by scoliosis ghosts. It could be nor by hell dogs, just its past, like Disco Elysium. Like the past is literally what's killing that world. Haunted by the past.
God, Disco's so good.
Like
Disco Elysium's so good.
like one of the big moments of small town, like where I spent a lot of time in the archives doing research, old newspapers.
Huge microfilm
I
fan.
love newspapers, old newspapers. That's why I like Night in the Woods, because there's a moment where you do
Right.
Night in the microfilm.
Night in the Woods is a fantastic game, by the way. We did a podcast over that.
Anyway, I was doing research on the White Cap movement, which is basically a bunch of anti-Antifa people from the from the late 19th century, running around here to whip women who had sex outside of marriage and high-five men who did the same.
But by here, you mean like these counties?
In Tell City, Perry County.
Perry County specifically.
Southern Indiana was a huge hotbed of the
Klan
White Caps
activity, yeah.
and then the White Caps obviously shoehorned nicely into the second wave of the Klan, who were a lot more focused on morality, Protestant morality, which means if you're Catholic, you are socialist, which is true in my case.
Which is true in my case as well.
I mean, I'm not going to say it. I mean, under no circumstances do you have to hand it to the Klan.
no.
You don't know me, Klan. Anyway, I got off topic. I was at the library. It was almost closing hours. There was a thunderstorm outside. I was in the basement. It's raining. It's almost deserted. And I'm like looking at all these places. I boonie cruise Perry County a lot. I know Perry County pretty well. The back roads, all the churches, all the weird vistas. I know all the old towns. That's why I've got this book, Tall Tales from Tattletown. I love local history. I genuinely love Perry County. But Perry County was huge in the second wave of the Klan. And Southern Indiana in general is where it came from. This is where we're sorry. It infected Republican politics, went all the way to the governor's mansion. Then its leader cannibalized a woman, and people stopped listening to him.
I think the reason these games speak to us is our own home has a very dark history.
Like Greenvale. When you're looking through Greenvale's like the Raincoat Killer, like, okay, it's not that simple. Raincoat Killer was just a victim of something else that was going on, some kind of systemic issue. And then anyway, right as I was leaving the library that night, there was thunderstorms, and I'm like looking around at all these points of Perry County that I love, and I notice Klan came to this Baptist church to give money and give a speech. I'm like, oh wow, that church is still there. I visit it. I see it when I'm boonie cruising.
Right.
They were here. They were at German Ridge. They were at this campground. They paraded down Main Street, and I was getting in a really bad headspace just realizing just how thorough, and I'm like mental mapping it. And if you've seen this particular anime, this might make sense. I like put my I like stop what I'm doing. I look up dramatically a transmutation circle. And then like I hear behind me,
well done, Donald.
you just couldn't leave it alone.
But it's weird. It's weird doing that. Like
Yeah.
it's a very weird feeling. And in this game, if it does a good job at nothing else, it does a very good job of presenting that realization to you the way you really feel that. And
That there is something wrong in this idyllic place.
and that's something that really speaks to us growing up here, because growing up here, you don't realize that.
Yeah.
You just don't. There's nothing wrong with it because it's, if nothing else, it's boring, or what people feel is boring.
Yeah.
You and I adapted. We found ways to make it fun growing up here, but it's very weird to find out that some place that you have nothing but good memories of held such terror.
And
It's
still does.
odd. And
Like-
still does. Yes, that's very important too.
Like in Greenvale, the thing that happened, the Raincoat Killer Massacre, that is the past. That is a thing that just like people hear about it, but it's just like a ghost story. It doesn't happen anymore. It's like the ghost of a girl who died of scarlet fever that still roams around Main Street. Well, we don't have scarlet fever anymore.
Right.
People don't die of disease. Pandemics are a thing of the past. There's no reason to worry about it. But
It'll
at
be
the-
gone in a day or two.
Yeah, but in the but at the conclusion of Deadly Premonition, that a rainstorm kicks up, and that gas seeps out, and it affects everyone in town, and that legacy of the past turns everyone into like a weird zombie, and they all start attacking York, and he's trying to not hurt them because he's trying to figure out what this problem is. He needs to get to Forest Cason to stop the problem. But like that gas, like that legacy of, I guess, darkness from the past that's risen up and is still haunting the town today. That affected me. It probably wasn't the intention, but I really like that haunted town.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
and it's a very haunted town, and not every haunting results in. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Leave.
Like there was no point. Like I didn't walk out of that library and like a trick shot a giant guy in overalls and say, "You're one crazy guy," and then walk away as he explodes into giblets. I just kind of went on with my life, and I look at Facebook every now and again. And I realize, man, we got to do something about that red gas in the water table.
Oh, it's horrible. Having people from your hometown on your Facebook is.
Yeah.
Even if you still live in your hometown, there's a certain amount, like I do. I live close to it. You can find a certain amount of peace so long as you don't befriend people you went to high school with on Facebook. Just don't do that. The people your suggested friends on Facebook are red seeds. Do not add them.
Yeah. Fortunately, I inoculated myself with a love of 80s horror movies, so I was able to resist and overcome the heart of darkness.
So yeah, ooh, you know what would be a good podcast?
Heart of Darkness?
Eternal Darkness.
Eternal Darkness.
That
Okay.
would be primo.
Yeah, that would be. Oh, yeah.
That's good.
That was one of those games that had us walking in pairs to the bathroom when we were playing it first time.
Oh, and
Because of there's a certain bathtub. And we're and,
the way the game, it's
onto
criminal that game doesn't have like sequels or like a whole IP series. But so Dawn, if anything final you want to leave us with from a Deadly Premonition?
Honestly, I don't like. It's not like it's a game I can come back to anytime. Like, there's not a whole lot of games I can replay. I could always lose myself in that town. It's weird. I don't understand it. I don't need to understand it.
Do you just maintain a save file like in the middle of the game? Just
Yeah,
to
like
revisit?
past the chipmunks who scream like apes. Yes. Avoid the game play, and the game's pretty fun. Just like, or I go back and watch like a let's play of it, just to have that in background noise of like York being a dick, and then discovering that the Sinner's Sandwich is actually pretty killer.
So do you the Sinner's
Sinner's Sandwich.
You have something to atone for.
Yeah, I can't get away with saying that in Wendy's when someone like, oh, the sinner's sandwich, the Baconator, huh? Sounds like someone's atoning for something. Trouble at home.
So guys, we say this every single time, but please play the game. Even if you listen to the podcast about the story, even if you listen, because you have to feel Deadly Premonition to get it. It's not something that you can have described to you. It's not, because I thought that Don and that LP that he had me watch ruined it for me, and when I played it, I had a whole different experience myself playing the game.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe somebody will just sit down in front of you and look at you judgmentally. That's.
I'm still trying to get over the idea the next time I'm at Wendy's or McDonald's or something. Just
the sinner's
sandwich.
FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan. I pull out like the Sam's Club card.
And everyone stares in bewilderment at the card because it's not the name I gave them. But guys, absolutely, this is a game you absolutely have to play to really get. I don't even think we could do it justice with a Let's Play.
Oh, yeah, probably not. I think Portland Let's Played it perfectly by kicking the evil forces out with leaf blowers, which is how you deal with red gas.
So now the sequel to Portland, though, Chicago, is starting soon.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Mayor Lightfoot is welcoming the federal agents into the city.
Yeah, like a trap. Yes.
It's a trap. All her critics, like everyone that's like going like fuck Lori Lightfoot right now. I really hope that isn't like
cops pull up. The shield is still up. That blast came from Sears Tower. That thing's operational. Sears isn't, but Sears Tower's fine.
So, guys, do us a favor. Go play Deadly Premonition. I can't imagine it's expensive. How much does it cost on the Switch? It's on the Switch, for God's sake. It's probably like $20 on the Switch.
Probably for the first one, anyway.
So, guys, go check that out. I believe on the Switch, it's now called Deadly Premonition Origins. And hopefully they haven't fixed anything. That's the main thing. You want to make sure they didn't fix anything.
Yeah,
but
you want to unpatch it.
Guys, until next time, check out our links. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out our links. We've got a book. We got this awesome T-shirt here, Patreon, which Don and I have done some awesome Patreon exclusive content for you guys. But the most important thing I need you to do for me for the next time we see you is stay safe and have fun.